Hey guys, so I just wanted to do a video here to talk about the processes and little things that you can do when working on a remix in Ableton. So for this song, I picked the song I Want You to Know, and I got the vocal track, the vocal samples, so that's here. I'll just play that for you, just soloed.
I want you to know, I want you to know that it's our time. You and me bleed the same light.
So obviously, just basically put that track in as the first track here, and obviously I've done a little bit of breaking up of the track, but for the most part it's actually just pretty much the original in most of its entirety. I've just cut out little tracks here, and what my purpose was for this song was just to basically write all the other parts, all the instrumental side of the song. So with that, you can use your own style, and you just use the vocal as the hook and the melody, but you can basically change the whole style and make it sound however you like. So I'll just play a little bit of the song so you can kind of get an idea for what I was going for. So I'll just start it maybe just here. So see what you think of the things that I've added, and I'll kind of go into detail about the different sounds that I'm using. And this is kind of a broad tutorial. It'll touch on a lot of different things and maybe make you aware of things that you weren't aware of before, hopefully. But it won't be a kind of like a straightforward how-to. It'll be just what I did, and a brief explanation of why I used this sound and why I didn't. So it's going to be a bit of compositional material, bit of Ableton specific information, and yeah, so hopefully you get something out of it. It might go on quite long, so if you want to just skip around and find parts of the video that are relevant to you, I'd suggest to do that. Hopefully I'll put a little in the article on Crafty Music. I'll just put little timestamps of what I talked about at which point in time, so you can use that as a bit of a reference. Alright, so I'll just play a little bit of the song here and give you an idea about how it sounds all together.
You and me bleed the same light. I want you to know that I'm all yours. You and me, we're the same force. I want you to know that it's our time. You and me bleed the same light. I want you to know that I'm all yours. You and me run the same course. I want you to know that it's our time. I want you to know that I'm all yours. You and me run the same course.
So I'll just stop it there. One thing that you might notice immediately is what I've got happening with the vocals at the end of the, I guess, the drop, or whatever you want to call that part of the song. So I've got a really long tail to that. So what it basically is using is a device called beat repeat. So this is really cool to do that kind of thing. And you see I've got an automation on the volume here. So the way you can set that up is you just click on your master volume, and a red line will come up, and it'll just be flat, so you can put in little points yourself, and you can bend and play around with how it drops off in volume or picks up. So you can fade in and fade out with that throughout the song without turning a fader up and down. It's all automated, so that's the beauty of that. So this beat repeat, it's pretty easy to configure. Obviously you've got device on and off, so this is off at the moment, but you've got your gate, you've got the trigger, so that's obviously 2 quarter notes, and you can just experiment with that, but just the effect, that's how you achieve it. So that's kind of how I'm going to go into this. Just this is what I did, this is how you do it. You can play around with the settings. I won't tell you exactly what I used. I mean, you can see what I used, but the parameters will be different depending on the style of song that you're doing and the effect that you're trying to create. So that's some stuff that I did with vocals. I might actually go track by track and look at the different effects and purposes for each track. So you've got the vocal, so that's going to be the main melody of the whole song. It already came with a fair bit of reverb, so I didn't actually add too much reverb there. And apart from that, I just used a beat repeat at the end of this chorus here, or drop, and that was pretty much the majority of the work for the vocals. So I'll skip on to the next track here. Now this is an electric piano, as you can see. So I'll actually bring up the device. So this is an Ableton device. So this comes with Ableton. It's not any third-party plugin, which is quite cool. So obviously you've got different parameters here, and I've tweaked it, as you can see. I'm not sure actually how much I tweaked it. It might have been very minute, but one thing that you might want to take note of is this box here. So this is actually will bring up a whole range of different sounds. So you can have beam, marimba, string, membrane, plate, pipe, and tube. And I went with membrane. I'll play around with the different sounds because they can make a dramatic difference. So I'll just go up to, say, here. So this is membrane, right? You can hear how that sounds. If I change it, it'll change the sound quite drastically. Marimba is also quite a nice sound. I could have gone with that, no reason why I didn't. Beam, string, plate. Plate sounds quite similar to what I chose with membrane. So that's the device there. I'll just stop that. Yeah, so that's the Ableton device. Pretty handy. So what I do is I actually tend to use a whole mix of different things to achieve the sound palette that I want. So this is one of those things that sometimes people overlook the Ableton sounds, but they can be quite cool. All right, moving on. This track here, I'm terrible at labeling my tracks, so please label your own tracks, because it does it does get easier if you've actually got track titles. But that being said, this session isn't too big, so as long as you were aware of what you're doing. The best thing about putting labels is that if anyone else is working on your track, it makes it a lot easier for them. But I was just working on this by myself, so not so much of a biggie. Alright, so this one here was actually the bass, so might even put that in. So this is a cool shortcut. Just go Control R when you're here, and it'll rename it for you. So there's a bass, and I'm kind of glad I'm doing this format because I can actually talk about a lot of different things. So like, say that for example is something that's quite easy to do and quite easy to explain. So there you go. All right, so we got bass here. Obviously I play, but well, maybe not so obviously, but I am a bass player, so I thought I'd do some chords on bass here and add to the arrangement. So this is what the bass sounds like. Pretty simple, and honestly the only effect that I've got on this, you can put EQs and mix it a bit more, and this is a song that I would still want to mix and master after this. This is just more a compositional phase. So all I've actually done here is put on a little bit of where are we? Try and give this a bit more room. So I've got a little bit of reverb. So this is my my A channel. So if you go into here, you got your A is your reverb and your B is your delay. So put a little bit of reverb on that one. Just master reverb. So that's the bass. That's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. All right, we'll go on to the drum rack here. So I just want to check quickly that, yeah. All right, so the drum rack, I'll just expand that a little bit more. So let's solo this and see how this sounds. So obviously just a kick there. Over here we get into kick and hi-hats. And what I've actually done is I've split it into 2 tracks here. This one here is actually the snare, and I just did this to set different parameters, keep them separate. You can do it all in one and work that way. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do the same thing, but let's just have a little look at the drum rack and how it works. So you go in here, you go drums, and you can get your drum rack, which is just a plugin, and you drop it into your track, and this comes up. And what I've actually done is I found some samples via online or however I found them. Freesound.org is a good place to find some cool samples, just as a nice free source. So what I've done is I've dropped in different sounds, different samples into here. So I've got a kick, got your hats, and then I've got this other percussive noise. And then in this one here, I've got just a I gotta solo this one. Just a clap, clap slash snare. It doesn't really sound like a clap, artificial snare. So that's about as far as that goes. I mean, you've got like, say for example, you go back into this one. You've got your hi-hat here. You can actually reduce the tail, so I can make it a really short tail, so it'll be like not much on the end of that. Same for your kick and etc. So like this is quite a longer tail. You could drag this up here and it'll sound like that, as opposed to, which you might not be heaps aware of, but it does present problems or solutions in the mix depending on how you use it. So that's the kit. Obviously there's a little bit of reverb on the two, a bit more on the snare than the kick and the hats. And some people would actually argue, and I would argue this as well probably, is I should have my kick not with too much reverb. The hi-hat should definitely be getting more reverb love, but that's alright. This is just to kind of talk about all these different elements, and you obviously learn more as you go along, and this was probably done about 6 months ago or something like that. So there you are. I can admit when I'm wrong, and who knows, I might learn more later and come back to this and think, this isn't the best, but can present another video for all the things that I was doing wrong back now. But I think you can hear the final product and you can think, okay, this sounds cool. This is a great starting point, because a lot of people just go off on a little tangent here, but a lot of people don't get started because they think what they're making isn't going to sound so good and stuff like that. You've got to get started. You've got to make songs that don't sound too good, because as you go on, you just learn more and more, and it's really cool when you can actually see that plotted out. I look to songs that I made like 2 years ago, and to see the progress that I've made just from doing it, and it's amazing and really cool to have a little reference point to check back to. Alright, so moving on, we'll have a look at this track here. Is just your classic reverse cymbals, so I'll just play that for you. And I've got a little bit of delay and reverb on that to give it a bit of simmer on the end. That's kind of self-explanatory. I guess the hard part is to find one that you like, and you can just use them to fade into different sections, and it's a technique that's been used for a while, and I think it's quite effective. Sometimes for my music I find that I don't want to use a riser, being a pitch that starts low and builds to a climax just before a drop or whatnot. So I tend to favor the reverse cymbals myself, but it's all personal preference, of course. Alright, moving on to the next track, we've got a muted guitar which sounds like this. And again, this is just an Ableton plugin. I guess we call them plugins. It's an Ableton sound, and it's technically even a synth, really, if you think about it. And what it is a hard mute guitar. So I think I found that in the guitar guitar section, probably like in here or something. Hard mute, yeah, here we are. So if you want to find this on your own instrumental rack, guitar unplugged, hard mute. Probably didn't mess around too much with it here. What I've done is I've actually added a filter delay on it and set that up how I wanted to, of course, and that just gives it a bit more stereo sound. I've got I mean, I might be going too technical for some people or not technical enough for others, so I'm just gonna try and explain my own words. So basically I've got the left output and the right output, and there's a delay between the two, and this I went with a time delay of just 16 milliseconds. So it's not enough to make it seem too trippy, but it's enough to give it a little bit of space in the mix. It makes it seem a little bit wider because there's a bit of delay from the left to right, so the left to right speakers aren't perfectly in sync, so it gives it more of a sense of depth, which is something I learnt from a guy called, oh god, I can't even think of the name right now, Mr. Bill from Melbourne. Mr. Bill, such a great producer, and he's got a lot of really detailed Ableton tutorials, so if you really want to get in depth, Mr. Bill is the way to go, and his music's great as well. It's got a kind of a glitchy vibe to it, and he spends a lot of time producing and is therefore very good. So check him out. So yeah, just filter delay and the hard mute guitar, so there's that for you. Moving on, this is kind of the first sight of a third-party like plugin, which is a soft synth. It's called Sylenth, quite popular. This track's actually muted here because I did work on this on another computer, which didn't have Sylenth, so I had to freeze the track, which is actually something we should talk about right now because it is quite handy. So if you've got some software where you are working on a sound, so with Sylenth, and you want to take it to another computer that doesn't have Sylenth, what you need to do is you need to grab your track, right click it, freeze the track, and this will mean that you can actually be able to work on it on another computer. Obviously you won't be able to change the actual sound, but you'll be able to at least hear it in the session, so that's pretty cool. So on this one, again, I've got this filter delay to give it some depth in the mix. Selected Moog bass, and I would have adjusted some parameters in there, maybe not a whole lot, depending on the sound that was originally there. Obviously, I like to play around with it a little bit to give it a bit of a more unique sound, because some people just use the straight parameters and it kind of gets in the meta of producing, and people are like, oh, I've heard that before and whatnot. So this is what it sounds like. So I've done that, and then what I've also done is put this track in here, which is kind of like a high attack to follow the bass to give it a little bit of a different sound. It's kind of like layering the sound, which I like to do. So on that one, on both these tracks, actually I should make them like a little bit higher. So you got just reverb there, master reverb, and this one's got a little bit of delay as well. Cool. Now this track here, it doesn't look like there's actually anything on it. I was obviously playing with something and didn't end up using it, so I would probably be inclined to delete that. This one here, and you can tell how organized I am right now. So this one here is the, what do they call that one? Detune low pass bass. So let's have a listen to this. So obviously I'm just using that as more of a kind of a pad underneath everything to build the intensity. And again on this one, what have we got here? We've got, yeah, no reverb on that one. We've got pretty much what would have been a pretty basic preset. It may have changed some things, or not anything at all. I'd take a very much a compositional element to what I do, because I used to work a lot with, well, I still do, with just acoustic instruments and songwriting. So sometimes if I find a sound, I don't mess around with it too much. I would like to get into that a bit more, but I'm more into creating the song than the little different details. So it'd probably be good for me to team up with someone who's really inclined to work on those things, and we could mix the best of both worlds. So if you're a guy that feels like that, then yeah, message me and we can we can work on some stuff together. Alright, so moving on, we've got some vibes here, and in the chorus you can hear this is kind of like almost an offbeaty thing, and this is kind of cool. So what I've done is I've gone into MIDI effects. So you've got your audio effects, which is your reverbs and your delays and filter delay, etc., etc. With this one, I've actually gone into MIDI effects, and you can go to chord effects. And for this one, I've gone bouncy chords, which it's actually under arpeggiator, not chords, and that kind of gives it a really cool vibe. I'll just play it with it on and then without it on, and you'll see the difference. So let's play that. So that's with it on and with it off. So the beauty of this is I could actually write this in as MIDI data, but instead of actually having to do that, I can just put in a chord. So I'll bring this up. Can actually just put in a chord and a held chord, and this will actually give it a rhythmic input, so that it will actually be triggering on 16th notes, got a bit of swing to it, etc., etc. Gives it a cool sound. And I've done this similarly with the this other sound. So that's more of like a vibe sound. This one is more of a let's just play it, more a percussive sound, I guess, almost like sounds like a crash. And you could say, yeah, it sounds pretty rubbish by itself, but if you play everything together, it kind of layers in a way that doesn't sound so rubbish. Well, you'd hope not. Or even, you could even just solo these two by themselves. So if you want to solo two things at the same time, just hold control when you click on the S there. A little nice tip for you. Alright, so let's have a listen to this. So you can kind of see how they work together. And here we are at the end, actually. Those were the last two tracks. So there you have it on that. Just wanted to maybe, I reckon one last thing to kind of touch on is I just saw there's some automation here. Let's just see what that automation was. I think it might just be volume, actually. Here we are. So this is...
Run the same chord.
So what you can do is you can actually see, if you click on the mixer here, wherever there's red, it actually shows the automation that's on the track. And this is kind of a red herring because there's actually no automation there. But you can see, obviously, on the mixer, I've just turned the volume down there. So yeah, thanks for, if you got through the whole video, hopefully you learned some stuff, or maybe you just jumped around and found some things specific to what you're working on. If you have any questions about anything in this video, just put it in the comments, either on YouTube or on Crafty Muso itself, the website, and I'll answer them either in like a future video or in a comment if I can easily explain it that way. And yeah, if you'd like me to kind of explore any particular element of Ableton, I'd be more than happy to, so just send a comment for that as well. Thanks guys, and have a good day or night.